15-second mark in the count. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. We have ignition sequence start. All ignitions are running. All engines running. We have a liftoff.
My name is Gary Fildes and I'm the director of the Kielder Observatory, Northumberland, the United Kingdom. And I've came here to sunny California, to Pasadena, for Space Fest 2014. And the reason I've came here is because some of the most important people in the history of space exploration have gathered here, including men who walked on the moon. Jack Robert Lousma is a former NASA astronaut and politician. Jack was one of the 19 astronauts selected by NASA in April 1966. He served as a member of the astronaut support crews for the Apollo 9, 10 and 13 missions. He famously was the Capcom recipient of the Houston, "We've had a problem" message from Apollo 13. He was also the pilot for Skylab 3 in 1973 and was commander on STS-3 in 1982. As an astronaut, Jack logged a total of over 1,619 hours in space and also spent 11 hours on 2 spacewalks outside the Skylab space station.
My name is Jack Lousma. I joined the space program when I was about 30 years old. I was a Marine fighter pilot and a reconnaissance pilot up until that time, and had the opportunity to apply for the NASA program. Didn't think I would ever make it. Didn't even think I would have a chance to apply. I thought it was, "Don't call us, we'll call you." I said, well, I'll never make this, but now to have a chance to do it, I'd just kick myself forever if I didn't try. So the first thing I did was what every husband does. I went home and I asked my wife what she thought about this. I thought she would say, "Don't do this, let's do something else," but she said, "Yeah, by all means, let's do that." And I never knew until about 3 years ago that the reason it was so easy for her to say, "Let's do it," was she didn't think I would make it anyway. 10,000 people applying, why start an argument? And the joke was on her. But we joined the NASA program in 1966, about the time Gemini 8 was flying. And we were the new guys. We had 19, we call ourselves the original 19, but we made about 49 astronauts altogether at that time.
So Jack, that's absolutely wonderful information, it really is. You've talked about walking in space. What sort of challenges does that impose upon the human person who has to leave the security of a space vessel and then to enter the vacuum of space? I mean, what are you thinking about and what are the real problems that you had?
Well, you know, when you're in space, you remember 3 things mainly in an orbital flight. You remember the launch. Have to be right in the top of your game, because if something goes wrong, it goes wrong very quickly. And so once you get through the launch, you feel a little more comfortable, because the most rigorous and dangerous part of the flight's over with. You have to stick your neck out again when you go home. But in the interim, when you're in orbit, you feel sort of safe and snug, because the only thing that can really get you are a fire or a loss of pressure. And so every day on a space station flight, where you don't have to do one thing after another to make a successful flight like you could do to the moon, everything's sort of worked in parallel. You have to work like you would at home or in a laboratory. You do a lot of different things, and you can do them all on different days. And so every day kind of blends into the other, except on the days you do the spacewalk. The ultimate in being in orbit is to do a spacewalk, and that takes a whole day to get ready and to do it and to get finished with it. And we try to stay out there as long as we possibly can. And so we usually were staying out there about 6 hours. We're out there doing our work. We have a program routine that we need to go through. But it's a lot different being outside than inside. And the inside of the spacecraft, you're looking through the window. You just see a part of the world go by at 300 miles down there, for example. And you can't see the whole Earth. But when you go outside, you're dazzled by the brilliance of the sunlight. You put your eye shades down, your helmet shades. And when you're out there, then you can sense your speed over the ground now, because you have more of a 3-dimensional perspective. You can look around. The world is about that big, from 300 miles, just a tremendous view, and you see this whole thing. And with this three-dimensional perspective, then you can sense your speed over the ground, but there's nothing flopping in the breeze, there's no vibration, there's nothing like that going on. It's just like gliding on this magic carpet into the sunrise, into the sunset, every hour and a half, going around the world, spending about 1 hour in the daylight and about 30 minutes in the shadow of the earth or in darkness, and sunrise and sunset every hour and a half. And you try to stay out there as long as you possibly can, to find something else to do that nobody had ever thought about. Even if your work is all done, find something else to do so you can stay out there longer and tell the ground you've got more to do. And it's their best interest if you stay out here a little longer. So that's how we just relish that opportunity, because it's such a great experience. And when you look at the Earth, with the naked eye from 300 miles, you can see freeways, and you can see cities, and you can see airports, and you can see all the geography down there. But still you can have that fine view where you can see the freeways and cities and so forth. And you see all the beautiful colors of the earth, the blues of the ocean, and the white of the clouds, and the snow on the mountains, and the green and brown patchwork of the farmers' fields, and the beautifully painted deserts, painted just the way the master painter painted them so many years ago, and all their living hues that you can't see when you're up close, but you can appreciate when you're further back. And the world looks like a map, and it reminds us that the world looks like a globe. And perhaps you got one at home, or the kids got one at school. But the things that you don't notice, that you don't think about until you get in this position, but you take this experience and integrate with everything you ever felt or observed in the past. And when you look at the Earth, you don't see the boundaries that separate the countries. You don't see those red and black lines that separate people from each other, that weren't there when the world was created, but placed there by people, by man's inhumanity to man, so to speak, and has created all the different cultures and languages and all the different disagreements. And you have you say, well, wouldn't it be ideal? And we live in a real world, but I think we ought to seek the ideal. Wouldn't it be that way if we could live with each other around the world, emotionally, psychologically, politically, economically, or however, any of those subjective areas, without those boundaries, the same way that we see the world physically from space without those boundaries. It's a unique thought, and perhaps it's kind of far out, but nevertheless, it's one of those thoughts that comes to you automatically because you have lived elsewhere on the Earth in the past, and this is new. But you have to realize, that risk is fundamental to human development, and it's hard to find things that mean something and have been good for humanity that haven't been done without some kind of risk, whether it's personal risk or whether it's financial risk or reputation risk. Very little of it's been done without taking the risk. And those are the kinds of things that enter the psychology of our friends, my friends, and probably lots of people that are willing to take those risks, those calculated risks, to make things better, and not only to make them better, but to do something that hasn't been done that would foreseeably be good. So when you talk about were you scared you went out? No, I wasn't afraid. I don't mean to brag, but I felt as though I was doing what I was meant to do, that this was the kind of thing that God had as His plan for me, and I would be cared for. But aside from that, I felt I had made the right choice, and that this was a good thing to do, and I was worth the risk. And you have to be aware of the heightened risk that you're in, but just be aware of it, but not allow it to interfere with what you're doing, even if something goes wrong. And if you're well trained and know what you're doing, you feel more at ease and confident that everything's going to be all right. So what you know and feel and sense in terms of what you have trained for and what you know to avoid, to mitigate that risk, it goes a long ways, I think, in helping you to face some of these issues.